The moment my own flesh and blood threatened to destroy my life over a debt, I realized that blood means absolutely nothing without respect. I stared at the legal documents trembling in my grip, watching my adult son pacing like a cornered animal across my living room. He screamed that I was a heartless monster for demanding what we had formally agreed upon, but I stood my ground. That devastating confrontation ended with 5 words that shattered our family forever, as I calmly told him that I would see him in court. My name is Arthur Vance, a retired civil engineer now living out my quiet days in a modest home outside of Philadelphia. A few years ago, my beloved wife Clara passed away after an agonizing battle with illness, leaving a massive void in my existence. The house we shared for decades suddenly felt entirely too vacant, but it was fully paid off and brimming with her memory, so I refused to leave. Our son Julian was always fiercely ambitious, graduating with a bright tech degree and constantly chasing the dream of launching his own major enterprise. Julian eventually married a woman named Natalie, whom Clara had never fully trusted, sensing a deep undercurrent of entitlement beneath her polished exterior. 5 years ago, Julian approached me with a supposedly foolproof business plan for a retail software startup, practically begging me for financial backing. He needed a massive sum of $150,000, which represented a huge portion of the life insurance payout Clara had left behind. I wanted to support his dreams, but I also understood that mixing family with large sums of cash is a recipe for absolute disaster. Because I wanted to protect our relationship, I told Julian we had to treat this as a legitimate business transaction with strict legal parameters. We sat down with my longtime attorney, drawing up a formal promissory note detailing a 5% annual interest rate and structured monthly repayments. Julian and Natalie both signed the paperwork cheerfully, and for the first couple of years, the monthly bank transfers arrived like clockwork. My son was thriving, expanding his staff, and I felt an immense sense of pride watching him succeed while honoring his word. The devastating turning point arrived quietly during the 4th year of the loan, when the expected August bank transfer simply never materialized in my account. I sent Julian a gentle text message assuming it was a minor oversight, but days passed with absolute silence before he sent a terse excuse about being busy. The next few months turned into an exhausting game of cat and mouse, with payments arriving weeks late or completely vanishing without explanation. Whenever I tried calling his phone to discuss the growing delinquency, my calls were abruptly deflected with cold, automated text responses. Driven by desperation, I finally drove out to their expensive new suburban home on a Saturday afternoon, determined to get some honest answers. Natalie answered the front door, but blocked the entryway with her arms tightly crossed, treating me like an unwelcome stranger rather than family. She aggressively informed me that Julian was unavailable and accused me of being a greedy collector who cared more about contracts than my own child. When she slammed the door in my face, I stood on their pristine driveway feeling a profound, cutting sorrow that I had never experienced before. By the time winter arrived, Julian owed me over $11,000, prompting me to send a formal demand letter via registered mail to his office. 3 days later, my phone rang and Julian unleashed a wave of absolute fury, screaming at me for involving lawyers in a family matter. He bitterly claimed that the money should have been an unconditional gift and threatened that the promissory note would never hold up in a real courtroom. He told me that I was dead to him, hitting me like a physical blow to the chest before abruptly severing the call. After weeks of sleepless nights and agonizing self-doubt, I officially filed a lawsuit through my attorney for the remaining balance and accrued interest, totaling over $160,000. The process server handed Julian the legal papers right outside his downtown office building, causing my phone to immediately explode with toxic, hateful text messages. Julian hired a high-priced defense attorney who tried to fabricate lies about verbal agreements, but they had absolutely no evidence to support their desperate claims. During the mandatory mediation session, Julian refused to look me in the eye, offering an insulting fraction of the debt. The entire bitter dispute culminated in a tense two-day trial, where the judge methodically reviewed our flawless paper trail and consistent payment history. The judge completely saw through my son's desperate fabrications, ruling that the promissory note was entirely valid and executed without an ounce of unlawful pressure. The final judgment ordered Julian to pay me a staggering $180,000, which included the full balance, interest, and my extensive legal fees. I had technically won the legal battle, but walking out of that wooden courtroom, I felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion rather than victory. When Julian failed to pay within the 90-day window, my lawyer initiated aggressive wage garnishment and placed a formal lien against his suburban property. This financial pressure finally broke his defiance, and he called me late one evening, weeping softly as he admitted that his entire life was collapsing. He confessed that he had completely taken advantage of my love, falsely assuming that his own father would never actually have the courage to enforce consequences. He asked if there was any hope of repairing our bond, and I told him we could try, but only after the debt was fully settled. Julian completely cleared the financial judgment over the next 6 weeks by liquidating his personal investments and obtaining a heavy home equity loan. We recently met for a quiet, incredibly painful coffee meeting where he handed me a long, deeply sincere letter of apology detailing his psychological growth. We are slowly rebuilding our connection from scratch through monthly dinners, operating with a newfound honesty and healthy boundaries that we drastically needed. I used a portion of the recovered funds to take a solo trip honoring Clara's memory, and I have finally learned that enforcing accountability is sometimes the most profound act of love. Did you ever have to make a painful stand against someone you loved just to protect your own worth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more stories.